I have before me two LOQ or LOQ Essentials laptops from Lenovo. They're not the same. They're the same like model, I guess I'd say, but they're actually very different laptops. This one here has an i5 12th gen with an RTX 3050. This one here has an i7 12th gen with a 4050. So before I even bought them, I realized, you know what, these are probably low wattage offerings, which they are, lower wattage offerings of those GPUs. So 4000 series is much more efficient than 3000 series. So I assumed that the 4000 series laptop here would be more performant at those lower watts than the 3000 series. You'll have to watch the review and find out if that's true or not, because there's also some other interesting things that go beyond that make these laptops different from one another. Spoiler for the video, one of them I'm going to have a much more favorable review of than the other one. So let's jump into the builder real quick here. We'll look at some of the prices, tell you guys what I paid for them, and then we can jump into the review proper and let you guys know potentially if these LOQ Essentials or LOQ Essentials are worth your money. Okay, let's have a look at the data sheets here. We can first look at the PSRef document and we can go into the builder. So 2 CPU options, this is at least for North America. 2 CPU options, both 12th gen, 12650HX, i7, 12450HX, i5. Similar, but the number of cores is different between the two of them. 3 CPU options, 3 GPU options, 4050, 3050, 2050. This is 6 GB, 6 GB, and 4 GB. These are all pretty low wattage variants of them. Not really any lower than something you find in an Ultrabook, but still fairly low for a gaming laptop. I suspect that the 4050 is going to be the most efficient because generally speaking 4000 series just does better on lower watts. So between them, even though they're kind of similar in some ways, the 4050 should be considerably more powerful. You do have a few different memory options here. They are SODIMM. There's only one slot there, which is interesting, but they are going to be multiple options there. You can spec it out how you want from Lenovo, or you can, I guess, just do it yourself. One battery size there, 3 cell 57 watt hour, not terrible, also not amazing. One screen option as well. It's actually a pretty good screen, honestly. 1080p is fine, 144 Hz is good, 100% sRGB is quite good, especially for a budget laptop. So look at the builder, Canadian version. When I did it, there was multiple options in here. Looks like the i7 model is gone, or at least out of stock or something. You can still use the builder though. You can see the difference between the two of them. 12450HX, 12650HX. This one here looks like it, if you upgrade, so $979 there, come in here. Huge jump in price. But it does come with the 4050 automatically. 2 different RAM mounts, 8 and 16. I would not buy that, I just do it on my own. I also would not upgrade the storage there, it's too expensive. The GPU is here. You can get $200 less for a 2050. It's not that great of a GPU. 3050 is okay, you'll see in this video, and 4050 is a more efficient chip. I didn't pay anything close to that. For Canadian, I think I paid, I don't even know, I think it was like $700, it was about $800. This is the type of laptop you would definitely want to get on sale. The MSRP is not very compelling, but once they go on sale, potentially you can get a pretty good value. Looking at the two laptops, they look basically the same. Nice top on them. You know, these are not going to be super all premium, hyper metal, everything, but there's this nice kind of shiny piece here, socketed in. Just gives it a little bit of a nice look to it. Bottom is plastic. It's premium kind of hard plastic that you can find on certain types of laptops from Lenovo. Some of the older ThinkBooks had this. It gives it a lot of structure, despite that. Very nice. Inside they look almost exactly the same, other than the keyboards look slightly different. We'll get back to that in a minute or two when we get to the keyboard. So we can move on from there. Ports are the same. Power in, RJ45 Ethernet, very nice. HDMI out, very nice. USB-A, USB-C, microphone headphone combo jack, nothing. SD card reader, and another USB-A. So decent enough ports for a little portable. You get HDMI and Wi-Fi. HDMI and Ethernet, which is not common. Weight, 1,841. So that's going to put it at around somewhere around 4 pounds or so. Not too bad. Not all metal, so they're not super heavy or anything like that. Yeah, we'll look at the inside now. On the bottom, big intake, cavernous kind of area there. But let's open them up and look at the inside. Okay, so let's get inside. Just took the screws out. Get those clips off. Probably some clips in the middle. No screws. What do we have going on inside? Interesting. It's going to be a little bit bare bones in some ways to keep costs down, but it's also looking pretty good in some other ways. So what do we have? A little bit of empty space here with a smaller motherboard, totally fine. Batteries to start here, 57.5 watt hours on both of them. Should be okay. They're Intel 12th gen. They're not going to be crazy efficient, but they'll be okay. If you're gaming on them, probably not very good. Speakers, you'll see when we get the speakers section, are okay, and they sound better than anticipated. It's kind of the older style. Totally fine. In terms of upgradability here, we do have a 2242 NVMe as the first populated slot there. You couldn't really put a bigger one because it's going to hit the fan. So you're going to start with that 2242 as the first one. However, there is another slot here, which is also for a 2242. So it looks like you can put in dual NVMe. However, they're going to be 2 times 2242. You could probably actually just break that little thing off and put a longer one in here, but it would kind of dangle. So you would need to put like a big thermal pad or something on it to keep it pressed down. You don't want it to be basically touching the speaker here. That's probably okay, but that's the battery terminal, so you do not want your NVMe touching that. You'd want to put some type of electrical tape or something. If you broke that off, put a 2280 in there, you could put a little piece of electrical tape to keep static between NVMe and that. It should be fine. Honestly, I don't see a problem with it. But you could also just do 2242, and don't do weird shenanigans like I would do. And then you do have a RAM slot in them, only one, which is interesting. So you're going to be stuck with that single RAM slot. It's a little weird. This one came with 16, this one came with 8. I'm going to pop this one out and put another. So it has 16 gigabytes. So they both have 16, so it's comparable. Massive fan on it. So again, it is an RTX system. You're going to have 12th gen Intel, which doesn't run super cool, to be honest, at HX, and then you're going to have RTX as well. So you actually have 2 chips down there being cooled by one single fan. Fortunately, it's a giant fan, huge giant fan, and they kind of the Lenovo style where they don't have as much noise turbulence, and 2 thick heat pipes on there, lots of VRM coverage, and spoiler again for the rest of the video, they are fairly low wattage offerings. So the CPUs actually only can get up to 70 watts under full load when only the CPU is being used. The GPUs are not going to be full wattage, 120 watt or 115 watt, 3050 for example. We'll see how that performs. The 4050 does scale better at lower watts than the 3050, so I suspect that in a lower wattage system like this, the 4050 model should do better, generally speaking. The cooling will be up to the task though, again, because they're not running at a super hot temperature. They're wattage limited variants of these systems. I don't expect them to run super hot. And take that out. It is DDR5, thankfully. DDR5 memory does run in dual channel, so you can see this here. 8 gigabytes. This is a 16 gigabyte. This is actually SK Hynix. I think this is Crucial. Yeah, that's a Crucial, Micron Crucial stick. And then this one over here is SK Hynix, but it's 8 gigabytes. So DDR5 is okay to run as a single stick. If it was DDR4, it would be actually like really bad because it would run a single channel and it would slow down the system. We don't have that issue. The only negative is then to upgrade, you're going to need a single stick of 16 gigabyte, a 16 gigabyte stick, too. But I'm just going to pop one of them in here just for testing purposes, and I'll pick up a 16 gigabyte single module, pop that in there, and upgrade that system there. Now let's have a look at a couple other things that I've noticed are different. I've already played with these a little bit, just as a spoiler. They're not exactly the same, despite the fact that they're the same model. And I'm not just talking about they're not the same in terms of the actual specifications. They're actually not the same. Like, they're quite a bit different. There's a little bit of a color variation to the keyboard, if you can see that. Right? This is a kind of a mottled gray, and it has a texture to it. Feels kind of like there's like a ThinkPad portable keyboard, and they're rounded edges, very rounded. It's okay. And this is just basically an IdeaPad Pro keyboard. Smooth texture. So I didn't expect that. Just right off the bat, I'm going to almost assume that this keyboard is going to be better on the higher end model. This is actually a nice keyboard. Basically, it's kind of what I look for. I don't like the black kind of matte that Lenovo has gone towards because, for one thing, it brings up fingerprints, and I don't like the texture as much. I actually really like the look and typically the feel of this style here, which is interesting. So we're going to do a quick typing test on them. This one here is also gray, which is nice. You're not getting that black. So it still should be pretty good for fingerprints. It's just weird that it's like a slightly different texture in that. The actual layout is the same, which is interesting, but the actual keycaps are slightly different. Let's do a quick typing test, see if they actually feel any different. We'll just go back and forth. So we'll start with the lower cost one. Back over here now. They feel way different. They both have like a minor amount of keyboard flex in the middle, but nothing overly egregious or anything like that. The key travel, is it the same? I don't know, maybe it's just like the shape of the keys here or something. This is fine. It's actually fine. I don't have a problem with this keyboard at all. I could type on this all the time, no problem. But I really like this keyboard. This is like actually a nice keyboard, like not a nice keyboard, like a nice keyboard, something that I would actually enjoy quite a bit to type on. This is kind of my preferred layout from Lenovo and kind of my preferred layout in general. There's slightly lower keycaps here than say like a Legion. The actual physical keycaps are slightly smaller. I'll zoom in there a little bit. You can see that there, they're slightly smaller, but there's still a lot of travel. And they're super snappy. These are also snappy, but the texture of them doesn't feel the same. It just feels a little bit cheaper. Trackpads are small on both. For me, I may be biased because I don't care. I think that's totally fine. They're off shifted to the left to line up with the keyboard, not with the numpad. So when you're typing, you do move your hands slightly over, but they're over the numpad rather than being over here. Again, I like that. Some people apparently don't. So for me, it's good. And the size of the trackpad is totally fine for me. I have no problems with that. I don't need a bigger trackpad than that. It gets the job done. It's still a fairly large trackpad overall. So it's not a micro little trackpad or something like that. It's just a standard, absolutely standard trackpad. And the click is nice. Sharp, loud click. I like that. Let's see this one. It feels ever so slightly different, but basically the same. So there's things here that are preferential for me. I'm fine with the size of the trackpad. Some people may not like that. I like the loud, sharp, tactile click on the trackpad. Some people may not. I like this keyboard overall, just in general. I like the numpad on it, and I like that the trackpad is shifted off to the left. Some people may not like that. Between the two of them, this is better, for sure. So regardless, objectively, this is a better keyboard. Now, screens on them, they're fine. I'm actually coming from a Lenovo Yoga 9i Pro right now that I've been using for the past 2 weeks. So I mean, I'm a little biased right now because that's a mini LED, like 1000 nit, whatever. But I decided to actually like mess around with some other laptops in the past couple days, just so that my brain was kind of reset to go from like super hyper halo laptop screen down to like normal realm of existence. So I think I'm reset a little bit here. They're both 1080p. I prefer more, but it's fine. Again, budget offering, and it's going to be good for the gaming GPU that's in here. You don't want more than that. Interestingly here, though, the refresh rate is really nice. 144 hertz on such a budget laptop is impressive. So it's 144 hertz, 1080p, and here's where things get crazy. 100% sRGB. You heard me. 100% sRGB. What the F are all these other companies doing with their expensive ass laptops that have a 45% NTSC garbage screen? Like, what the? Anyways, these are fantastic screens on these LOQ lock laptops. 100% sRGB, 1080p is fine for these GPUs. I wouldn't want more probably, and 144 hertz refresh rate. Get the F out of here, all these other companies with $2,000 laptops with 45% NTSC. I've seen laptops with 4080s with NTSC. That actually pisses me off. And having 100% sRGB sold this on me. Like I was actually not interested that much in these. I was like, it's fine. Like it's a budget gaming laptop. It's probably all right. And then I was like, holy shit! It has a 100% sRGB 144 hertz screen. I was like, yeah, I'm doing this review. They're the same screen, technically. There might be like ever so slightly. No, they look exactly the same. The camera might look different. Blacks are good on both, for IPS at least. Right, like these screens, 100% sRGB. They're not OLED, but they're freaking nice. These are the type screens that you're going to play games and they're going to look bright and vivid and nice and bold and saturated. You know, you're playing games like Horizon Forbidden West and that's a very saturated game. It's going to look gorgeous on this. Maybe we'll do that in this video. But also for like movies and content watching, they're killer. On a budget laptop like this, 2 budget laptops like this, to get 100% sRGB screen, beautiful high refresh rate. The only way you could make them better is you could add slightly more brightness maybe and make them 100% DCI-P3, but then the cost would go up. And also, I guess you could make them like 1600p or something, but then the GPU wouldn't be up to the task. For gaming, this is kind of the sweet spot. Look at that. I'm assuming that the speakers are exactly the same, or close enough to be no different. I will just give a quick test on both, and then if they are the same, then I'll just use one of them. Yeah, they sound exactly the same. Okay, so we'll just continue this test on one of them. So let's turn it up here, maybe like 70, which is like a moderate listening volume, and have a listen. Turn it up. Fine, totally fine, good, not fine, good, I would say. Not heavy on the low end bass like a Asus G16 or the Lenovo Yoga 9i Pro that I'm reviewing right now. Like those aren't in the same realm of existence there. I don't think you're gonna really notice the difference between this and like a Legion 5. Honestly, I don't think you will. It sounds fine. By the way, I'm just kind of like doing stuff here just to compare the i5 and i7 just like in my brain. The systems feel exactly the same. See, a little faster on the i7 versus the i5, but in most cases, they're going to be pretty close in terms of snappiness. There's definitely a little bit of an edge to an i7 here. See, just a fraction of a second faster, just a slightly more powerful processor. They're both in the same mode. Just a little bit quicker, and that makes sense. I mean, more cores. See, just a tiny little bit quicker, but between every little task here. General browsing, no real difference. If you're loading up heavy programs and that, you'll notice the difference, I guess, side by side. But in real world use, if you just have one or the other, they're going to feel exactly the same. So no throttling right off the bat. Wattages, it's fairly high watts, 60, 70. I think technically the CPU could do more. Maybe. In like a thicker chassis. It might be wattage limited here, a power limited. They just don't let it go as much. Gaming laptop sound, 50 dB. No, there it goes. So they're the same. Two cameras here, lower end, higher end. They look exactly the same. See if they sound exactly the same. We're recording the exact same thing at the exact same time. Overall, they look okay. They probably 720p, kind of just budget cameras, but in a gaming laptop at this price, it's totally fine. Going to be totally fine for videos, honestly. Video conferencing, no problem. And if you're streaming, you throw it in the corner, it's going to look fine, honestly. It does the job for a budget camera. And it's not really that bright in here. There's some light here, not too much coming from there, nothing on the front at all. And it's doing a pretty good job of lighting it up. So fine. For a gaming laptop of this price, it's fine. Okay, so we're going to compare the two here. But the first step is to actually just look at one of them. Basically, just look at the screen. So this here is the LOQ to 4050. Not so much for performance, just for the actual screen to see how it looks. This is Horizon Forbidden West. And you can see there that, the screen's not super bright. It's not the brightest screen in the world. It's not like a 500 nit or something like that, but bright enough for gaming. And most importantly here is that the colors look good. It's not going to match a 100% DCI-P OLED screen or anything like that, but having 100% sRGB goes a long way. People playing games like this game here on, let's say, one of those 45% NTSC gaming laptops, good lord. It's going to look muted, mottled, ugly, especially in the reds, right? Like these vibrant, what are supposed to be vibrant colors on those screens are just not going to look vibrant. Whereas on this screen, everything looks vibrant. So that's why I often rant about screens being like, well, if they don't have a 100% sRGB screen, then they're pretty much like, what's the point, right? It's something you're going to be staring at playing games on all the time. You're going to want a good screen. That's kind of the first most important thing of a laptop, at least an acceptable screen. So this goes a long way. So there's going to be something that I'm going to point out, that these are low wattage GPUs. You can see, we're only hitting 50, 60 watts, so we're not going to be getting peak power. Fortunately, the 4050 at least does perform very, very well actually at low watts. It scales very well. So, I mean, we'll have to see when we get into more game testing what the difference is, but, you know, here we're on high, right? 1080p high, with just the lightest amount of scaling, just DLSS quality, no frame gen or anything like that. And depending on the area, you know, you're going to be at 60 in these areas. Over here, you saw it was more like 50 or so in this very challenging high draw distance area. Well, above 50, but. So now what we're going to do is the same test, this time on the 3050 system. See if there's any difference between the two of them, which there should be, theoretically. So same, DLSS. For some reason it's on dynamic, even though I turned that off. So we'll just go quality, just the exact same settings to start here. Graphics, we're going to have to leave on high, so that's exactly the same settings as before. And you can see how much worse the 3050 is than the 4050. CPU, it's around the same watts. GPU is actually, I think it's pulling more power. Is that true? I feel like it was pulling less on the 4050 to get worse performance, right? 3050 is Ampere generation GPU, even though this is a 6 GB refresh, which is fine. However, the 3000 series needs high watts to do anything. Honestly, it needs high watts. The ADA Lovelace generation, so 4050, is much more efficient with watts. So 4050, 4060, 4070, etc. with the same wattages as the 3000, 3050, 3060, 3070 can do a lot more. With 3000 series, you really need those watts to be high. You increase the watts, the performance goes up. With the 4000 series, the same thing does happen. However, when you go down in watts, your performance doesn't absolutely plummet. And you can see that here. Where we were getting, you know, 55 to 60, we're getting 45 or so. Over here, we were getting, what were we getting? Around 50, something like that. And look at how much worse the performance is here. But the GPU being a 3000 series versus a 4000 series is an issue here because this one here is going to be wattage deprived and really struggle because of that. The 4000 series here is also going to be wattage deprived. However, it's going to be able to do more with those lower watts. So the gaming performance between the two of them is really not comparable. I believe Jared's Tech did a review of this one here, the 3000 series, and he really didn't like it, which makes sense. Okay, so now we're back at 1440p. It's going to look weird on the screen because this is 4K ultra wide, but I just want to kind of show what I was talking about there. So we can try this at 1440p now. See the GPU and CPU are pulling about the same. Obviously lower performance, but we can try, you know, a little bit more scaling. For example, we can go, again, we're at a higher resolution, so we can get away with more without it looking bad. Let's try performance. It probably won't jump as much as you think. Yeah, mainly because we're starting to hit that bottleneck. GPU, CPU, just not enough watts to really keep up at this resolution. It just starts to become a little tough. But again, we're at high, so we can turn that down. Let's say medium. And look at that. Now you're at 1440p medium with DLSS, obviously. No frame gen yet. And yeah, like it's going to be pretty good. Again, you're running into that wattage. GPU is now down to only 30. Right, like it's just the shared wattage is a little bit rough here. Let's see if FrameGen can save it. Go like that. Yeah, I don't know why. DLSS FrameGen just sucks. Let's try FSR. Yeah, it's just so much better. So now we're using DLSS with FSR FrameGen, so much better than the DLSS FrameGen. And what it's going to do here is just make it so much more static. Right. Now we're looking at 70 in these areas over here. This is at 1440p with scaling, but just a proof of concept. By the way, I don't have VSync on. You could just turn VSync on for that screen tearing. So let's look at some more games here. Baldur's Gate 3 and Last Light in 1080p Ultra Quality DLSS. 3050 is getting an average of 73. 1% lows of 29, 0.1% lows of 23, playable, fine. 4050 is much more playable, however. You're going to get 80 for average, which isn't a huge improvement, 10% or so. However, the 1% lows and 0.1% lows are considerably better. You can see here, not quite double, but 1.5 and getting close to double on the 0.1% low, so much better there. Path of Exile 2, 1080p Ultra, native this time. Again, huge improvement here, 66, 53, and 47 versus 98, 67, and 31. The 0.1% lows came down, which is interesting, but it could have just been where I was testing in that. But overall, you can see the average is up quite a bit, 50%, almost 50% faster right there. And then you'll be getting, pretty big jump even on the 1% lows as well. So again, very good there. Over here on Final Fantasy VII Remake, we have a little bit of an engine cap. In some scenes, it goes all the way up to 120, but just playing for quite a while, moving around. Decent improvement on the averages, not really that considerable, 10% more. It's not a lot. However, the 1% lows and 0.1% lows are massively better, almost 3 times higher on the 1% lows, and 2.5 times higher on the 0.1% lows on the 4050. So again, huge improvement. And then over here on Ghost of Tsushima, 1080p high quality DLSS, no frame gen, FSR frame gen. Average is close again. Actually, the 1% lows are pretty close again. 0.1% lows actually dropped again. Again, could just be the area that I was testing. But interestingly, almost the same results. But on Ghost of Tsushima specifically, very interesting. Maybe it's a little bit more CPU heavy in that area I was in. I don't know. Ghost of Tsushima, however, with frame gen, basically the same thing going on there. Now we're seeing a pretty big improvement on the 4050, 77 to 89, 46 to 54, 29 to 41. So I mean, all of these are really highlighting the same type of message here, where I mean, a high wattage 3050 versus a high wattage 4050, you will see a difference, but potentially not so much as this here, because here we're seeing low wattage 3050 that is in some cases choking quite a bit on those lower wattages, and you're getting kind of bad performance, especially in the lows. You're really noticing it, like that's pretty unplayable right there in that game there. This is Baldur's Gate's not the end of the world if it's low, but it's not great overall, I would say. However, the 4050 is fine overall. I mean, you're getting very playable frame rates here, and actually in some cases very good performance. That's because the Ampere generation really does need those extra watts to perform well, whereas Ada Lovelace generation 4000 series NVIDIA, especially the 4050, 60, and 70, really do scale well at lower wattages.
All right, well, it's been a couple days of testing. I've actually had the laptops for a little while. So my recommendation is, if you're looking at grabbing one of these, there's the 3050 model here, and there's the 4050 model here. What do I think about them? Well, I'm not a big fan of the 3050 model. Realistically, it's okay, but the performance is kind of lackluster. So, I mean, it's all gonna be price dependent, right? Like if you get this thing for super cheap, it's fine. But at MSRP and even the discounted price, not a big fan of that. 4050 model, however, it performs significantly better, and it's just more efficient, right? And for me, I mean, I was looking at 100 Canadian dollars more, which is like 65 US dollars more. There's no reason to buy the 3050. If the 4050 is out there, you pay a few more bucks, you get more RAM, right? So you get an extra 8 gigabytes of RAM, so you get 16. You get a way more efficient GPU that works better. CPU is better, but it's not going to really make a difference there. Weirdly, it has a better keyboard as well. So it's interesting that they have these two laptops here, the 3050 model and the 4050 model, and they're the same lineup and everything. But one of them is, significantly different than the other. There's actually quite a bit of a difference there. So that's where things start to get interesting. So we'll look at the 3050. I mean, my conclusions. I mean, it still does have a nice screen. The keyboard's pretty good, but I like the other one more, which is interesting. Otherwise, the chassis is fine. Screen is great on this laptop here, but this being an Ampere GPU 3000 series, it means it really does want to have more watts. 3050 even, you bring those watts down quite a bit, it's going to start to choke, right? That's just the way that the Ampere stuff is. It's not as efficient on this laptop here. By contrast, this one here has a better keyboard, which is interesting, much better keyboard. I really like that keyboard there. This one here also does have the ATA Lovelace, so 4000 series GPU. This one here, 4050, is going to be much more efficient. So even if you have the same watts on this one, same watts on the 3050, same VRAM on both, outside of just the raw performance uplift between a 3050 and a 4050, because there is just raw performance uplift, there's also efficiency things to consider here. So when the 4050 here is at a lower wattage, it doesn't choke as much as the 3050. So it actually becomes a viable gaming laptop at low watts. You get a little more performance out of it, but as it stands, it's a pretty decent laptop actually, the 4000 series here. So this one, yeah, I'd actually recommend it as long as the price is okay. As long as the price is okay, you know, it's nice keyboard, decent enough audio, good screen, and the performance is okay. It's fine, it's okay. The 3000 series, yeah, I'm just gonna flip back to this one more time. I don't recommend it at MSRP at all. Even on sale, what I paid, I wouldn't buy it, to be honest. But if the price gets good, you know, if you find one of these things and say, rather than being 600 or 650 Canadian, 700 Canadian, all of a sudden it's on some kind of a deep discount, like 500 Canadian, like 400 American dollars. I mean, it's possible, right? If it's possible to find these things at that kind of price. At that point, I mean, yeah, what else are you going to buy? Like, honestly, what else are you going to buy? So this would be then become a pretty compelling option there. So it always going to be price dependent. At the asking price, the 3051, I don't really like it. I don't think it's really worth it. I think there's been some other reviews that kind of said the same. They were just like, nah, it's not really there. I don't often watch a lot of reviews before I watch my own. Before I do my own, I like to have my own conclusions. But I did watch the Jared's Tech video, and he said something similar, like, you know, it's just, the performance is just not good on the 3000 series. The 4000 series is performant, though, performant enough. It's not going to beat out a big gaming laptop, even the LOQ, the bigger LOQ, which at MSRP is a significant, they're similar in price. They're not a huge difference there. However, this thing at sale price is way cheaper than the other LOQ, or LOQ, however you want to call it. So this one here, the LOQ, the LOQ with the 4000 series, the LOQ LOQ Essentials with the 4000 series is a nice laptop. I can recommend it if the price is good on a good discount, like a deep discount. It actually does make sense. Good way to get into gaming laptop without spending a ton of money. 3000 series, avoid. Generally speaking, I would say avoid. If it's a super deep discount, I mean, sure, whatever, just get it, right? Just understand you're going to get quite a bit less performance out of that, out of this one here. But those are the two laptops there, 4000 series and 3000 series of the LOQ LOQ Essentials Lenovo 2024 laptops. One of them is not so great, and one of them is actually pretty decent, I'd say.